They cannot even begin to imagine the brave and righteous spirit they've unleashed in men and women like all of you here today. And this is some crowd. We broke the record again. We broke the record again. But they're going to find out the hard way starting on November 8th, and then again even more so on November 2024. They will find out like never before. We did it twice, and we'll do it again. We're going to be doing it again a third time.
Now when I was a young boy, about the age of 5, my teachers taught me I could be the greatest man alive. They told me I could change the world, be whatever I wanted to be. There was no one in the world like me. Every one of us was so unique. I'd not be an average man. No, sir, I'd be no average man. So I had those big dreams.
Welcome back, everybody, to Eat the Rich, the show about our political economy, late-stage capitalism, and the millionaires, billionaires, and multinational corporations hell-bent on staving off its death rattle. I'm Shane, and tonight we have with us Chris.
Hello.
Carrie.
Hey there.
And we are very happy to have back on the program publisher of Protein Mag and independent journalist Stephen Monacelli. Stephen, how's it going, man?
Oh, man, I feel like shit.
Oh, we're all right there with you, buddy. So we wanted to have you come back on the program to talk about your experiences at CPAC this past week, which you wrote these two fantastic pieces for Rolling Stone that we read and we want to get into. And we also were, I know certainly I was just hanging on your kind of mega thread on Twitter of all the weird little photos and moments going on there.
I'm so excited to live vicariously through you for an hour, because I would love to go to CPAC. That is so up my alley.
This was 2 years in a row for me, so I was really pleased to be there, because it really was an extension of what I had seen last year, but even more so. Truly, it was a spectacle unlike anything I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I wanted to start off by asking you, actually, is having the experience of gone to a couple of these events, and I know a couple of other strange, weird right-wing conferences that we've talked to you about. What was the same this year, and what was different? What was the general vibe going on?
Well, as far as I understand it, we're dealing with a Marxist invasion, and Joe Biden's a Marxist.
Obviously.
And we can't cancel white supremacists, so they have to.
Right, then we'd be no better than Twitter.
Right. Right. Some differences. Last time, Nick Fuentes and the Groyper Army, which for those of you who are fortunate enough to not know anything about this, are basically a bunch of juvenile white nationalists, if not, basically neo-Nazis. And they are known for wearing pit vipers and, a bunch of other ridiculous costumes and shit. And they wore these Blue America First hats this year. And they, last year they were kicked out, right? This year they weren't. Right. They made a big scene last year. This year they decided to be more demure. But just as they've had for the past 3 years, they also had their sort of the shadow conference to CPAC called AFPAC, not to be confused with AFLAC. And
I also kept hearing that every time I saw AFPAC. It's a terrible acronym.
But they, what looks like a duck walks like a duck. Anyway, but please don't sue me, AFLAC. I love your insurance. It's a very good product. The little white nationalists, they had their own conference, and it shared some speakers with CPAC, which I would say, the big difference was that some of the people who wouldn't have been welcome a year ago, 2 years ago, were on stage, in the House. and nobody seemed willing to say anything about it.
I mean, that was one of the things I picked up, especially in your pieces. You were sort of talking about that, like, you know, ostensibly CPAC is supposed to like denounce overt white nationalism, and then, you know, there's this sort of competing co-event happening simultaneously where they can kind of speak the quiet part out loud. But I got the vibe just from your writing that, like, because there was so much overlap, it was a little bit more mixed. There was a little bit more kind of open calls for violence and stuff going on at CPAC. Would that be correct? Or
I mean, I think, look, there's a Memphis, Tennessee radio host. I posted some screenshots from his speech, which they had a wonderfully positioned closed captioning system. Thank God for that. Because I've got two here. My personal preferred pronouns are fried chick and collard greens. And then the second one just says cracker, but I prefer the term saltine American. So this is at the conference that's ostensibly, once again, the one that is not the overt white nationalist conference that's occurring a few miles down the road, which on the way there to check out the scene, I got lost on the way. I took a wrong turn and I had to drive through the Walt Disney properties, which I mentioned in my second article. It just incidentally, Walt Disney hosted Leni Riefenstahl, Hitler's favorite propaganda filmmaker, you know, like almost 100 years ago. I'm just like, wow, this is poetic. I like drive through there. I'm like, this is the Magic Kingdom, baby.
they host the next AFPAC just at Epcot.
They get like their own pavilion.
Fucking Baudrillard's skeleton just unearths itself. So yeah, definitely blurred lines to make a really also problematic reference. Thanks for that. Was definitely the theme here, and a lack of tension, you could say. There was a tension that I did notice, which I hope to follow up on and talk a bit more about, which is about Ukraine and Russia. There were some people who were basically openly carrying water. I mean, you know, the whole Ukraine-Russia thing is fucked for a number of reasons, obviously. And, you know, I don't want to derail us having that conversation because that's a whole other episode. And Nigel Farage said some really
I was gonna
broken
say,
clock twice a day stuff. Like, fuck, you know, I was like, wow. So it was a really strange, that was a strange phenomenon, to say the least. But I didn't focus as much on that because, you know, that was really, in my mind, secondary to what was like the unitary phenomenon of just fascism happening in Orlando.
Yeah, I definitely want to ask you a couple of questions, about some of those speakers who overlapped, right? And who were at both events, and because you mentioned some of them in your pieces and like how they kind of position themselves at either or space. But before that, just having spent a couple days there, like energy wise, like aesthetic wise, we've seen some of the pictures, obviously some clips and stuff that you've shown, and I think we've all are familiar with seeing kind of little snippets like that in the press over the years, but just like actually like being present there, like what is like the energy of like the crowd when like speakers come up and stuff? How are people responding to what's being said?
It depends on what's being said, and that's something that I take notes on a lot, because as I quoted in the piece, you know, what happens on stage and what they say, it's definitely alarming, but it's kind of a sideshow to a certain degree, because what these conferences are about is like networking. It's like a vacation for some people. It's like, it's like a trade conference, right? And those... You ever been to like a old school trade conference like
unfortunately,
yeah, right. I've been to several. I've been to fiber optic network trade conferences.
I've had to work like home and gardening trade conferences. Awful.
So like imagine like some of that, but then it's just like fascism, and so and so like I take notes about what the crowd gets riled up about, because I feel like that's kind of an important intersection of these things. You know, it helps to understand like what's animating people to show up, and and kind of, it's the corollary of it. I don't know if that's not the right word, whatever. The complementary thing that helps me firm up my reading on it is like the straw poll. You look at those two things together and you understand like where the movement's at least in terms of the activist types that are there. And that represents a good bulk of like money and influencer types. And, as I mentioned in the piece also, this used to be, I don't want to say a fringe conference as much as like the harder edge of the Republican Party. But now it's like the center of gravity. And that's a different position for it to be in. They had the counter conference. I don't know if any of you looked into anything about this. I haven't had a lot of time because it was going on while I was there. But the counter conference, not AFPAC, which was, I would say, not really a counter conference, but the one that was going on with Liz Cheney and those other people.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah,
The respectable Republicans.
Right.
Is that who it was?
Yeah, like there's no oxygen in the room though. Because it was all in Orlando. So like I think that just tells us like where we are and the types of things that would get stoked about were just like, yeah, look at the straw poll. The bottom 3 issues were like inequity and like the top issues were one of them was like constitutional rights. Take that for what you will. But obviously it was like elections. Yeah. I've been taking to saying city states' rights. My eyes turn into lasers. But anyway, the other issues were like obviously election fraud and then immigration. Those are the two. Those are the two drum beats that we're seeing. The election was fake and a fraud, and also Marxist immigrant invasion. George Soros, ooh, scary, because like CRT's still there and like BLM is still there. But those are fading somewhat into the background as like, they're supporting characters, but I don't think that that's what most people are focused on, at least based on my understanding of the straw poll and being in the room.
So is the fake election stuff still like a really big priority? And are they taking that into the conversation about 2024 too?
I mean, in that room, it was like the biggest.
Yeah, pretty much every like I've been like looking at like the websites of a lot of like Republican candidates who are running in 2022, and like election integrity is like a central plank on everybody, like everybody who tries to like mold themselves in the in the Donald Trump image.
Let me look at that real quick. So the straw poll, obviously, for people who don't know what that is, it's just like people in the room participate in this thing. The number one issue was election integrity. Second was immigration / border wall. Third one, constitutional rights.
Cancel culture. Where does cancel culture rank?
That's like not even on here, actually. I think that's less of an. It's not a policy issue as much as it's just an overarching theme.
That was the theme last year, right? Wasn't it like uncanceled or something?
Yeah,
that was like
America. It was America uncanceled. And
there,
there it is. Yeah, is big tech censorship on there? Because that's also.
That was definitely an issue.
There we go.
Let me see. It's. I mean, it was one they talked about a lot, but I guess privacy / gov data. Maybe that's
there we go.
Yeah.
But
that's one way to say it.
Yeah.
So the theme this year was basically like imagine just the most condescending ask for the manager type person correcting some person of color's conjugation. Awake, not woke.
Oh boy.
Oh, that's wow.
That was the theme.
Wow.
Awake, not woke. And then they had lovely.
Was that with like an emblem of a phoenix rising from flaming ashes to become a soaring imperial eagle?
The panel names were gold. So the first one was about school boards, and it was the main title was "Domestic Terrorists Unite:
What?
Because they're making it a whole thing about like how some people have alerted the FBI because there's been like actual threats made in these insane school board meetings.
Right.
And like they're trying to turn that into like the federal government saying concerned parents are domestic terrorists.
Right.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
And then the other one was
I'll go ahead and say all parents are domestic terrorists.
Yeah,
just generally.
just on that real quick. I do think it's I do think it's cool that Republicans all now also hate the FBI and stuff, but they've just they managed to miss the mark entirely while they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of like I don't know if Stephen, if you watched this, but a couple months ago we did an episode where we talked about the Tucker Carlson fucking Leni Riefenstahl documentary about January 6th.
Patriot Purge.
And it was the same.
Turner Diaries.
It was the same, tact. It was the same rhetorical maneuver of being like, oh, they're calling us domestic terrorists. And then sort of owning that in this weird label, but it wasn't even just about January 6th. It was also like COVID restriction stuff. Like, oh, if you tell me to, if because I'm not wearing a mask, you're gonna call the cops. Oh, so what? I'm a terrorist now? I guess I might as well do terrorism.
What?
Like
you want to see my papers? What is this? Nazi Germany?
Similar kind of vibe.
There was another panel that was basically for people who are considering running for election. It was like, are you ready to be called a racist as like a badge of honor?
Like it's never happened to them before.
It's an instructional thing of like, it just automatically anticipates how racist you are. So it gives you the rhetorical tools to defend against it. That's really funny. Shit.
Yeah, and then like the beauty of just, I mean, hypocrisy is nothing new, but it's just so sharp these days. Candace Owens up there saying like, when did we start co-parenting with the federal government? And then Ken Paxton's there. He's the attorney general for Texas, who's probably going to face a primary, and he's indicted, and he's currently under FBI investigation. As they hate the FBI, but anyway, for bribery, and like 4 of his former Republican deputy attorney generals are like, there's definitely something going on here. I digress. He was there, and he and our governor here in Texas have started basically saying, if you got trans kids, we're going to put you in jail. We're going to put you in jail. Oh, you want to do compassionate care? Oh, that's jail. So
it's really horrific.
It's fucked up. It's just violence against children and their parents. And they say, we should have really understood what they meant when they said they wanted a government small enough to fit in the bedroom. They like meant that like it's like inside of your fucking personal life, like persecuting it and, like basically deciding what you can and can't do in your own fucking house like that. It's fucked up. But hey, I live here, so Ken Paxton did have to unblock me on Twitter because you can't do that to a voting constituent.
I saw you going back and forth a little bit about that.
That's really good.
He's probably going to get primaried out. Like he's facing a runoff, and he like didn't even break 50% in his home county.
Oh wow!
Isn't one of the
good?
Is it one of the like lesser Bushes?
Yep.
Running for that spot. Yeah.
I wish I felt good enough to drink.
George P. Bush, right?
Yeah, that's the one. George P.
Really?
Bush.
Yeah, George P. Bush.
That's like a trash tier Bush. That's like
I was
what are you just gonna call him P? I mean, if the pattern is like W and HW,
Peb. With an exclamation point.
Oh god.
One of the things you mentioned earlier too is that for some people too, this is sort of like a vacation spot, and I know that's something that's always interesting to me, kind of outside of even again any of the kind of like formal political stuff going on, just like the kind of cultural attitude. And I know, Carrie, you had picked up on some of that too.
Yeah, it's like a racist anime convention, right?
Right.
That's the vibe I got from some of the pictures that you posted of like that Uncle Jam guy.
Yeah, I feel like especially since Donald Trump and like sort of like the phenomenon of like the Trump rallies when he was running, but then also the fact that he just like continued doing rallies continuously throughout his entire presidency. You had like people like fucking like that Vincent Fusca guy that people think is like JFK Jr. I know he was at CPAC, but like
spitting game.
Yeah. But you have this phenomenon now, like mostly driven by Trump, where like you sort of like it's almost like this like fucking like Republican fish concert, and people like kind of follow it all across the country.
I said that. I called it that. I said it's exactly like that, except like some of them, like the Protzman QAnon people, are like whatever the fucking Church of Eternal Sunshine or whatever the ones that thought that Jerry was Jesus. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, except the music's not good. Well, they do play like Fortunate Son and Elton John whenever like Trump leads up to it.
Right.
So
right.
it's fun.
They play Fortunate
Despite all the artists' requests
so
that he stop. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Speaking of the big boy speech, you were there for Trump's speech?
For like the first third to a half of it.
Did he play the hits? Did he play the hits? What did he say? What did he talk about?
Yeah, I mean, most of the hits. He talked a bit about Ukraine, I think, after I left. Honestly, I chugged a full Stella Tallboy the moment the doors closed behind us. And, like, I had taken a 50 milligram legal edible before I walked through secret security because I forgot they would be there. And then, like, I went into a fugue state, basically.
Oh my god.
I was just not paying attention.
I mean, yeah, you and the majority of the geriatric audience there were excited about Trump's speech. Yeah,
and my article like went up like right when he went on stage, and the last line was, "And he hadn't even gone on stage yet."
Right. You mentioned Uncle Big Tim. In one of your pieces or in the mega thread, you mentioned like he had like an encounter with the police. I was wondering what like the general police presence was in the area, and if you had a hard time with them at all.
I didn't. No, I was a good boy.
Were they giving like the anime convention goers a hard time?
There was one weird situation. I saw some guy with a stuffed animal near the Fox Nation booth. I think he was like maybe trying to like creepily give it to one of the hosts or something.
That's so weird.
Sign my body pillow of you.
I may have gotten a photo of it, but it was just like so much. I was like, I can't even. But no. I mean, it was like, standard police presence, and then at the AFPAC, there was a decent amount of cops, because apparently some journalists tried to show up.
They were all off duty.
And I wrote in the second piece, they made, Big Uncle Tim told me that the first time he showed up, they were like, get the hell out of here. Like, we don't want to see you again. And the second time he showed up with a ticket on his neck, like a lanyard on his neck, that some person had given him. Because they had recognized him from CPAC, where he had been walking around asking everybody where the after party with the open bar would be. And he ends up stumbling in back with this lanyard, and the cop is like, repeat after me. You need to be on your best behavior. I'm going to be on my best behavior. And he made him do it like multiple times.
It's like Bart Simpson writing the thing like 50 times.
Yeah, I mean, he was. Everybody was on their best behavior. Everybody went home safe. And he took a selfie with Gavin McInnes,
who looks like shit, by the way.
That's a picture of him where he looks.
I hadn't seen a newer picture of him, I feel like, in a while. Yeah, he's not looking great.
They had a lot of folks there. Joe Arpaio was there. I think Milo, I believe, was there. I saw a report saying he is there. I mean, obviously, Wendy Rogers, who has blocked me on Twitter, was there talking about setting up gallows.
The clip of Joe Arpaio is so good, where he's like, he keeps talking about how people call him racist, and like he's confused as to why the crowd is cheering, like every time he talks about being accused of being racist.
I have the reputation of being the biggest racist in the country. Think of that. Well, I hate to. What are you clapping for? That I am or I'm not? Well, I'm not.
Oh my God! Okay, so that Jesse Peters guy.
Oh yeah.
Peters?
Yeah.
By
the way, there's incredible. One of the Krasenstein brothers went on his show in like 2017. It's on. It's incredible. It's incredible. Highly recommend.
Have to go watch that.
Highly recommend it.
I can't even talk about it too much because I was just kind of sad. But the most fucked up thing I saw was and I got a screenshot of it in the live stream while he was talking about how he thinks everything basically had gone downhill since the civil rights movement. They were, at least one person, pretty sure more than one person, were saying Uncle Ruckus Groiper.
That's Gans. Yeah, that's Gans.
Yeah, it's Gans, right? So it wasn't even subtle, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just really overt. And like, I was pretty unsettled. You know, it's like, I try to laugh about stuff.
Yeah.
I was pretty fucking bummed out about it all.
I mean, to that kind of bleaker point, one thing I'm sort of curious about, also talking about, you know, some of the people we just mentioned that were at AFPAC and, you know, like McGinnis and a couple of these other figures that sort of rose to prominence during that first Trump campaign and have sort of just been riding that same kind of notoriety now, like, you know, almost 8 years or so, like 7 years, 8 years, in terms of their, you know, their having any weight on the scale of like the kind of broader conservative movement or actual kind of, you know, machinations within the Republican Party. And, you know, there are those figures, but in terms of like, I don't know, I guess the ones that we don't know as much, right? Like the movement, the sort of America First movement is not just comprised of those people, right? There are like some of the younger guys, I guess, like just like the Groypers or whatever, who have sort of coming into the fore now. And I know you mentioned you saw some of them at like CPAC. I don't know.
Yeah, to be clear, like they are the like driving force behind that conference. They're know younger guys, college age guys. You know, think like the Jungian shadow of TPUSA if it can get worse.
Right.
And that's actually kind of like the more concerning part, I guess, because, you know, at most Trump rallies, I'm like, I think I'd be worried if people didn't have to catch their breath on the way up the stairs, but like things are a little different. Yeah, but I mean, you know, it's pretty open now, so I guess like we'll see what people have to say about it. There's already been like some mild censures put out of like Rogers and others. But yeah, it seems like kind of a just slap on the wrist, really.
I wanted to ask you about Marjorie Taylor Greene, because you mentioned her a couple of times in your piece, and you have this one line that I want to read because it was so good. In sort of describing her, you call her, quote, a walking internet troll who made it clear a long time ago that her internal compass is pointed perpetually at the area of greatest overlap between bigotry and self-promotion, which I think is, again, just like fantastic writing. But I mean,
I have good editors. I have a good editor.
she spoke at both events, right?
Yeah.
What was like the difference between her kind of performance in both spheres?
I mean, you know how some people like go to the paint store and they can't really tell the difference between shit?
That's me.
like
That's
eggshell and off-white.
Yeah.
And think about the scene from American Psycho, the business card scene.
Okay.
It's like eggshell and bone. I think that's the best way I could probably put it.
I mean, because she's gotten some flack now for having been at the AFPAC. I keep wanting to say
she's played
AFPAC,
dumb, right?
But yeah,
like,
but she's sort of been evasive about it. She hasn't.
She's tried to characterize it as like, I won't abandon these like young angry men. You know, like trying to basically cast herself as like I'm trying to like save these lost youths and like playing dumb about like what they're really about and what's really going on here. I think it's pretty obvious. It's my opinion that she is she's an internet troll, right? We all know that trope. It's a joke.
Right.
This ski,
Right.
this
It's not that serious.
This skull ski mask that I'm wearing, it's a joke.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's why that's how she's been described in my writing, because like I don't think anything other than a vocal condemnation is appropriate at this point.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, with that in mind, and sort of as again, you know, as you sort of wrote about, and we were speaking about a second ago about like, you know, this event, or now this sort of like doubleheader event, kind of being closer to the center of the base of the Republican Party, and you having these figures who are not just like whatever media personalities, but like people who are actively running, right? Like people who are either within power or like trying to get into different places. I mean, like, what's your sense of like the degree of the continuing relevance of like Trump? Because it kind of goes back and forth in general discussions, right? There's still like I still see people kind of do these weird little head games of like, oh, who's going to run in 2024, the Republican side? And to me, it seems like pretty clear that it's just going to be fucking Trump. Again, like, but I don't know. Like, I mean, is there anybody else that, I know, like, DeSantis was there, and a couple of other figures.
Number two. That's the number two.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the predicted pairing is Trump-DeSantis.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man,
Pence is just like
he's gone.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah, he's like hated by all of them.
Yeah.
I could be I could be wrong about this, but like I think he may have been at the other conference.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, really?
The
The Liz Cheney one? Hell yeah. That's
I really
respectable.
should be fact checked on this. My brain is so fucked up
Okay,
right now.
sure.
So, but like, I guess like he's been
listeners, if you know something else, please DM Dwight about it and ask.
Yeah.
And more or less, like I guess I say that because I have the impression that he's been saying and doing some things that put him in that camp.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. He's now trying to like claw back some amount of reputation now that he's been thrown out of the the Trump and masses. I mean, I am, obviously, like you were saying too, like his, Trump's speech being the sort of like headline event is ultimately like kind of boring and like not really that interesting to go to. But I did notice like in in some of the pictures and stuff that you shared, there was like one where there was like literally like a golden statue of Trump. like what was the Trump stuff that maybe like stuff like that you saw there?
So yeah, the golden Trump, I think that's been around for a little bit. The second thing that was right next to it was a Trump Rambo.
I saw that. Yeah.
Nice.
Classic.
It's a good one.
Classic.
I mean, they're bedazzled 45s because he's the 45th.
Naturally.
They're not actually guns. I should clarify. Bedazzled purses in the shape of 45s.
Oh,
Okay.
perfect. Hey, my birthday's coming up.
Yeah, I was kind of interested in maybe hearing more of that as well. Did you get, like, there were vendors, I assume? Did you get a chance? I know there was some merchandise. Did you get a chance to take a look at, to browse the merchandise that was for sale there? Did you see anything good?
Some trucker convoy shirts. I got a Groiper pin because Uncle Tim gave it to me.
Get your gripers here. He's just like walking down the aisle. Gripers.
It's just like Pepe the Frog. It's ugly, and I have to put it in a box that is very clearly labeled, like, in case of death, these are things I hate.
your children many years from now find them and go, oh my God, was Daddy a groiper?
Grandpa, no! Yeah, there were like... God, I mean, just a lot of really ridiculous things. They had a book, a collection of books of Trump's tweets.
Oh God, I saw those. They're like leather bound, embossed. Like it says just the tweets.
Yeah,
was that it? Yeah.
And then there's a local publisher I love called Deep Vellum, and the publisher like either retweeted it or commented on it and said, "This is why there's a paper shortage in publishing. Like shit like this is what is causing these problems."
I do miss browsing his tweets. How much was that book?
Well, it's a multi-volume set. It's like the encyclopedia. You buy it in installments, and they send it to your house.
Yeah. By the time I had gotten to that booth, I had already gone to the free wine booth and the free whiskey booth. I'm not kidding. There were both.
Are those set up by the event, or are those just like proud patriots?
One of them was like a patriotic wine company, and then I think the other one was like set up by something else, and they had just like some whiskey on offer, and we were like, yeah, sure, give me some pamphlets. You could drink whenever though. Like they had bars available everywhere.
That's the one good thing.
It really was.
So speaking of food too, I mean, I think probably a lot of people saw that for the VIP Trump section, which costs like $10,000 to get into. They were serving McDonald's, which is, it's just so perfect because it's
Hey, it was $7,000.
Okay, all right, a measly
$7,000.
A measly $7,000.
It was really the most expensive McDonald's meal probably of anyone's ever had, and like that mayonnaise, it smelled crazy. Like it was under it was under heat lamps. You have no idea for how long. I don't know.
I mean, it's also because me and Carrie were talking about that earlier. Like, it's not even because there's the one angle of it where you can just look at it and go like, oh, it's just like purely it's like the cheapest thing for a large catering option, but it really is his brand.
Yeah,
like it's Trump's. It's like that. Like he probably had other choices.
Yeah.
He definitely did.
and was like, McDonald's, that's a wonderful American company. I love it.
Yeah, it's just his appeal to the common man thing that he does.
He also just loves McDonald's.
Yeah, he does also love McDonald's. Yes, definitely.
He does.
But he leans into it.
So, but if that was like the food behind the paywall. Like what was like, were there like pretzel stands? Like how do you fucking eat when you're at CPAC?
I mean, it was the premier property of the hotelier that owns, according to a local I was told, like approximately 50% of the hotels in the city, in like a city that has like the most hotels per capita out of probably any American city. So there were restaurants and, there's like a coffee place. There's like a Mexican restaurant, a burger restaurant. So you could eat, you were trapped in there basically, unless you wanted to like get out and pay for parking again and stuff.
Right.
So it wasn't great, but it could have been a lot worse. It could have been like the Trump rallies I went to where you were like trapped in a little pen outside. There was no booze, and the lines for like these food trucks that only served meat were there, and I'm a vegetarian.
Oh no.
Yeah, so
I know this is probably not what you meant, but what that just conjured to my mind was just like paleo diet trucks that literally just serve like hunks of meat.
Hold on a second. What hotel was this in?
The Rose and Shingle Creek.
The Rose and Shingle Creek. I just wanted to look up the owner because I thought it might be at the Westgate Resorts, which is owned by somebody that we were just talking about.
It's in Florida. I just assumed it was the Church of Scientology.
Oh no, that one is Harris Rosen, because Westgate, I thought it was at Westgate, and that is owned by the Queen of Versailles.
Yeah, the
and her
Seagulls.
husband. Yeah.
Oh, that's the other one.
Who are big Trumpers.
Yeah.
They had, their organization had like, a lot of stuff there, like people wearing their shirts. There's like an advertisement on the screen.
Shit.
Were they like trying to like sell timeshares at CPAC? That would be amazing.
No. It was
That would be so cool, though.
It was their nonprofit because of the whole opioid death thing.
Right.
Sure,
yes,
because they lost a daughter, right?
And like I was just like, there, it just once again, one of these moments where I was like, that's refreshing. I saw like a naloxone distribution on the screen. And I'm like,
oh wow.
I'm like, weren't y'all the ones that were just talking about Joe Biden crack pipe?
Right.
Yeah.
They're like, some of these people are just like almost there on some things. It's remarkable. And yet they just fall for this really vicious, awful propaganda that makes them blind to just good, meaningful efforts that, it sucks. It sucks. And then they have so much fucking money, they make like a 1-for-1 recreation of like a place where people like cut the heads off of the people who lived there. Like, what? What are we doing? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like, I feel like we're in like some fucking Don DeLillo novel or what, I don't know.
Also, just speaking to the kind of like weirdness, I mean, we mentioned the Uncle Jam guy, and the kind of other, the sort of weird like festival vibe. Were there any other sort of costumed heroes, especially it being Orlando? I like to imagine that there was just like the version of like somebody wearing a Mickey Mouse costume, but they're just
Yeah, you said the Groiper army was dressed like weird. Was
somebody wearing like a Groiper full suit costume and like taking pictures with kids or anything like that?
There's there's that whole like trend of like dresses with things written on the back of them. There's one woman that said Squad Busters.
Oh, I saw that picture. Yeah.
I was like, oh man. The costumed hero that comes to mind is Grizzly Joe. The guy who I've seen twice at CPAC, who apparently goes to CPAC every year for like 10 years and wears the same thing. And he's an internet personality.
Isn't he like a former NYPD cop and he like dresses like a fucking like a biker from Texas? Is it that guy?
He was a first responder on 9/11.
Oh yeah.
On 9/11. And then he's apparently he might be a biker. I mean, he sure dresses like one, but he doesn't wear a rocker, so he's not affiliated. He was like one of the only people who was basically willing to say like fuck these white nationalists.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and he said, I didn't quote him on it, but he was like, if this were my party, I would say, I quoted him on saying I would tell all these people to get the fuck out, and I would have what I didn't quote him on was he said with a bat in my hand.
Yeah,
I was like, okay. Like, that sounds actually really reasonable. Thanks. Like, and I was like, do you think immigration is a Marxist invasion? He's like, no. I was like, all right, we're making progress.
Did you get a chance to talk to a lot of people? Did you mingle? Did you have?
I did a bit.
Did you network?
I did a bit. One young guy who's definitely not wanting me to use his name in anything, kind of like came up to me and he's like, "Who are you with?" And we were just like chatting, and he kind of like started talking about how he thinks there's like really beautiful women there, and was like definitely excited about trying to chat some ladies up. And I was like, "That's cool."
Oh my god!
What?
And I was like,
CPAC.
I was like, that's cool, man. That's cool, man. What do you think about like the whole white national? I asked him, what do you think about the whole Putin invading Ukraine thing? Immediately, like after he says something like that, and then he was like saying he's an isolationist, and I was like, all right, okay, like I don't really know what to expect with anybody here. And then he like buttoned up his jacket to make sure his badge wasn't visible. I mean, I talked with some definitely just like some random people. Most people are nice when they're in their environment.
Sure.
And I was writing for Rolling Stone, so apparently people don't hate that magazine yet. And have like, I guess, some nostalgic impressions of it. And so I would usually get some like pretty friendly responses like, oh, cool, they sent you guys. One person the guy who gave me wine was like, oh, you got a hit piece incoming? And I was like, well, nobody's hit me yet. So, I mean, people were generally friendly. People were like willing to kind of joke around a bit, but, I would say some people got cagey about some stuff and kind of knew that, if they said certain things, I probably might quote them on it.
Sure.
But I was mostly just kind of in a state of surreal awe most of the time, and was mostly focused on trying to observe as much as I could and just be kind of a fly on the wall, because the moment I start to kind of interact with people, it does change things.
Sure.
Like an interview it's different than just like observing people in their natural habitat and hearing what they're talking about. Those are very different things. They're both necessary. But it's I guess what I'm also suggesting is sometimes there's a pretty big difference between the two, and it's important to have both in order to have an appreciation of that.
I mean, one moment that I think was one of those like fly on the wall moments that you were describing, that you wrote about in, I think, the second piece, and you had also posted a clip of on Twitter, which was like really baffling to me, and I was hoping you could kind of just like run down through it. But there was like a tense exchange between these two guys, David Clements and Josh Barnett.
David Jose destroyed you. You didn't know the definition of common law. Come on, man. You're friends, man. You didn't know the definition of common law. How are you an attorney and you don't know that? So I got it on video. It does work. It does. Well, why did you? Oh, really? You're in the Dell Symposium on stage telling people we need to use affidavits and notices and teach the state legislature. You're full of it. You're full of it. Yeah, you did. It's all of it. Everybody saw that, right? You watched
Everybody saw it.
Who here has seen the
Did you
cyber
watch that?
symposium?
I'm the one that you had claimed of hacking it.
Rick Rudy's a
You
liar.
lied. You lied. You called me truthout.org. You called me Antifa. Oh, yeah, exactly. Who are you? You might be. No, I'm the one that you called out.
I love that. I love it. It's so
And
good.
if you can walk us through, and first of all, maybe helpful for our listeners and for us, like who these fucking
idea.
guys are,
Absolutely no clue.
and what they were maybe kind of fighting about.
I hate all of you for making me remember this shit. So fucked up. My brain's a hellscape. So one David Clements. I haven't ever written anything about him, but if you Google him, he's like a disgraced professor. He fell off the.
That's his Wikipedia page. David Clements, disgraced professor
who he fell off the deep end on like the election audit goose chase stuff. Just as a huckster, as I would describe him. He was speaking at CPAC, and then there was this guy named I didn't know who he was at the time. I had recognized David Clements, but Josh Barnett, I believe, he's Arizona candidate for something. And I noticed they were like having this tense conversation. I've seen this. I know the body language. I know exactly when something like this is even about to happen. It's like people got their cameras or their phones out, and they're like, you can see their body language. They're ready for like a confrontation, and they're all charged up. So I see this guy approach someone, and he's like in his face, saying some stuff, and there's like people starting to gather around it, also noticing what's happening. And I was just kind of crawling around, seeing what I could see, and I noticed this. I think I may have even been on my way to like try and catch a speaker, so I couldn't stick around for the whole time. And so I see this, and I'm like, okay, I gotta start filming this now. And I walk up. Right when I walk up, I hear them talking about Josh Barnett saying to David Clements, who I believe is a lawyer, or at least that he was under the impression he was. He's like, you don't even know the definition of common law, bro, and you're a lawyer. And I'm like trying to catch up so fast. I'm like, who are these guys? I'm like, they got lanyards on. I'm looking at their lanyards. It's like kind of hard to see them. I like want to make sure I get them on camera too. So I'm like pan down, pan up. And then there's like this third guy who comes up, who I think he's with Josh, who I later learned out I think is into some QAnon type stuff. And so this is like, splintering of the fringe. We've got like Paul Bunyan with like a fucking nano axe, and he's like also filming this. And as it like goes on, the third guy chimes in at Clements. He's like, "You called me Antifa," or something
which is the
like
worst
that.
thing you could call somebody at this event.
Meanwhile, maybe probably in my peripheral vision is like a groiper wearing a hat that says America First.
Oh gosh.
Like walking around just openly. And so that was just bizarre. And I didn't stick around to figure out exactly what was going on there. I would have had to ask way too many questions to go down that rabbit hole. So I decided to leave most of it a mystery. I followed up on it later, and I was like, man, yeah, I'm so glad I didn't waste my time. But it just really showed the sort of things that occurred there, like the surreality of it, the people that it attracted, and the sort of little petty beefs that they had. It was incredible. It was incredible. I felt like I was like in high school or something, like witnessing like a cafeteria confrontation about something that you like posted that my mom's got a fat ass on Facebook.
Just from a quick Google search, it looks like it might have been a YouTube debate that they did 9 months ago.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah, David Clements and David Jose, along with Josh Barnett, debate the issues.
So
9 months ago, and they were fighting about it.
Let me tell you. As the special Mook correspondent, as the only one,
Mook's on the ground.
Yeah.
As the only one whose last name is Monacelli in here, I have admiration for any man who can like have like one communication and then seethe for 9 months and like plan and like, you know, travel and wait to have a confrontation. Like it's like crossing the Rubicon. Good. Like he landed in Orlando and is like, we've
so
gone
determined.
This far, like we have to go further. We won't stop until we take Rome.
Just so petty.
Narrow lasered eyes, like walking, you know, strutting down the fucking Orlando terminal.
It takes a lot to like maintain that level. It takes a lot of energy to maintain that level of intense hatred for someone, like for that long. Yeah. And we have the internet these days. Like you shouldn't have to do that. You can just like go post like, you know, poopy pig balls on someone's page and like move on with your day. It's like meditative for me. I don't understand how these people hold on to this stuff.
One other set of weirdos that you brought up, again, I think in your pieces, but also definitely in the thread that I cannot not ask you about is the McCloskeys.
Oh yes.
Oh baby.
Oh yeah, dude.
Oh baby.
Friends of the show. Yeah.
So yeah. Like I didn't recognize them because the guy's hair's either he stopped dyeing it or it's gone gray from the stress, and his wife I didn't recognize either. Like they just kind of look different than their photos, but that's kind of why I was like, oh, no wonder they're handing these out as like mementos for his Senate campaign.
Right, they were handing out the photos that like went viral, right?
Of like his like
the guns,
his like M16 from the 80s that like
which
he's like never pulled out.
They're known for doing that. There was some stories like last summer out of St. Louis of like from servers that like of restaurants they'd gone to and like they'd left those on the table, like autographed pictures of them with the guns.
What the fuck? Is this like Bonnie and Clyde shit? Like what? Like
yeah.
I don't even think they did that. I'm just like making shit up at this point. What? Like what is? I don't even understand if there's a comparison that I can make to this.
The real question I have there is was that in addition to a tip or was that in lieu of the tip? I would really like to know if they just left the photos and no tip.
No, free. You just get them.
Yeah,
it's just
they're that's worth more than a tip.
Look, it's like their card. You know, like for them, like they needed.
Oh God, they're gonna make an NFT out of it if they haven't already.
If they haven't
what
already,
the fuck?
Yeah.
Shane,
I'm so sorry.
Lathe of heaven. Lathe of heaven. What the
I
fuck?
am googling Patriot NFTs right now.
They're gonna do it.
I mean, I think what's really interesting about that in particular is, and it seems to be a theme. Maybe more broadly in the political sphere, but particularly for these kind of like far right, provocateurs and stuff, where it's like there's so much of their notoriety and also ultimately like their grievances center around these internet moments, right? Like, and so like with the McCloskeys, like part of the reason why they're handing out the fucking photograph is like you were just saying, Stephen, like. You don't even recognize them unless they give you the photograph.
They're a meme.
It's like you have to see the meme, and but then also which is not totally, there are a lot of people who you would probably not recognize unless you saw the meme, but they're trying to leverage that into political office.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. That's their accomplishment. That's their entree into elected office. But for some
remember
people,
when we triggered the libs so bad? Like that's what it is.
Right. But for some people, there is the they don't have to do that. Like there's one Kevin Sorbo who
yes.
If you're like me, and you have never been a good student and like to fake being sick at home so you wouldn't have to go to school when you were young, I did get a good dose of daytime television. So I saw my share of Hercules, saw a bit of Andromeda, right? So I know who this guy is. I know who this guy is. And so he can't just leave it at that, though. He has to wear a suit that's lined with his tweets.
I saw it, dude. It was
He's like holding
really
it open.
Yeah, and was he like holding it open the whole time? Because they're lying. It's not on the outside.
It's the lining.
Just on the inside.
So you have to hold it open to show people. You have to do like the flasher move to make the point of your dress.
Yeah. We've peaked. Fashion's dead. Like after this, just dress me in a burlap sack. I'm never gonna get better than a Kevin Sorbo tweet suit.
Was it even like for sale? It was just a custom. Only I get to wear this.
It's couture.
I'll make one for him, like of his tweets, and wear it. Why not? It's look. If you can't appreciate fashion separate from politics, folks. Just kidding. Not gonna open that can of worms.
One thing too that I'm sort of generally curious about, given the increasing like spectacle gaudiness, right, that we're discussing, right? Like, how much does religion play into the discursive space there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there like a really strong contingent that's sort of like battering on like the evangelical stuff, or is it more broadly the kind of culture war nationalist, America first kind of thing? Like, where on the continuum is that sitting?
I mean, there's just definitely some overt Christian nationalist stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the lieutenant governor of, is it North Carolina or South Carolina? Oh God, he said that the Second Amendment is a God-given right.
Okay, yeah, that was on the tablets. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
chapter and verse, brother. So, and that, like they've taken God out of schools, and that's bad.
Classic
stuff. That's strong. I mean, there was a booth for conservative atheists.
Oh, really?
At the vendor space, yeah. But
what a cool space to be. Just imagine how interesting those people must be.
So my favorite though was there was a booth for someone running for some office. It was right across from the TP USA booth, where a young man there said that my outfit was swaggy thanks to capitalism, and that capitalism has never killed anyone. And across from it was this guy named Professor Victor Professor Victor quotes MAGA Williams.
Okay.
And he says, "Reclaim the Democrat Party from Marists."
Oh, yeah, I saw that,
racists and academic thugs. God, the fucking Marists.
Wait, reclaim the Democratic Party? What is he trying to reclaim?
Marist Lenism.
Like the Democratic Party of the like segregation?
Yeah. I mean, I was very confused.
Reclaim the Democratic Party circa 1860.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly.
He wasn't at the booth. He wasn't at the booth when I saw it, so I didn't get a chance to check in on this. But he did have like this weird little drop cloth thing that was hanging down part of it that had weed flags on it. So
hell yeah, bro.
He smokes weed. Oh God. Yeah, the person I would say who looked the most dead was Rick Scott. God, he just looks so awful.
The way you said that, it just made me like really wish for like a sort of like a Trump Entertainment Tonight recap of CPAC. It's like most dead goes to Rick Scott. Pathetic.
I've got these two great captures of his speech, which are closed captioned, and I put them right next to each other. It says, "When you turn on the news at night, do you recognize the country you see? Capitalism, fiscal responsibility, opportunity, rug, individualism, Judeo-Christian." And it's just like... I'm like, okay. Gee, and gosh, the fun things that were taken out of context on the closed caption were something that really just kept me going through. Like, he wants to stop the government from asking anyone what their race or skin color is.
What?
So, like, these people, broadly speaking, just like, people who think white culture is like a thing, they like constructed this case system based on race, and they worked so hard to do it. And then like now that they realize like, oh, maybe it's creating data that can like show that it's racist, they're like, we can't collect the data anymore. We can't do that. got to do colorblind casting, and we just happened to keep casting all white people because the plays we keep writing are all for white people. But hey, we're not racist. It's fine. And also, you can't talk about it. It's nuts. And he like really did look like his skin was made of paper. So I hope he has some vitamins because like he's supposed to leave in Florida, isn't he?
He's I'm just looking at the pictures he posted, and he really does look awful. And I think it was like Stephen Colbert who referred to him as a python on ecstasy, and that really is just what he looks like.
So my favorite photo is you got to go to at Uncle Big Tim on Twitter and like go to his media tab real quick and scroll down a bit. He's got a photo with Matt Gaetz, and then he's also got a photo with Rick Scott, which he looks like a mannequin from my nightmares, like from a I'm like having a nightmare. I'm having a nightmare in like a department store, which is already like being in a department store is nightmarish for me anyway to begin with.
It's a Twilight Zone episode where the mannequins come to life and discuss fiscal responsibility.
Another really rich. I wrote about this in the second piece for Rolling Stone. Another really rich golden part was like Mike Lindell in this like square shaped pen standing on the stage alone, speaking so closely and loudly into the microphone that you can't hear hardly a single word he's saying. I did make out that he said something along the lines of the only reason my company is successful is because of 2012, which kind of feels like he's telling on himself. And then like no one was paying attention to him while they were just filling their plates with an open buffet in the most packed room that I saw during the entire time I was there. And I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. So that was the end of that day for me. And I mean, yeah, I just continued to see people who were more ridiculous or more absurd or surreal than I had expected. Like I just kept getting one-upped. It seemed like it would never stop. It seemed like I was like about to have some sort of mental break.
God, I wish that was me.
Yeah, I'll have some of what he's having. Yeah, the next one we got to. I mean, obviously, you know, you'll probably be writing about it for, you know, an esteemed publication, but we'll just sort of try to also be there. Just, you know, just sort of like ghosting you. Just like
they'll basically let anybody in with the media pass if you have like actually an audience and a following. They want the attention. Obviously, you have to follow the rules and behave. But
no death threats.
Yeah, duh. Except if you receive them while you're there, thanks to a certain quote-unquote journalist. That's fine, I guess, on Twitter.com. But, yeah, no, that would be fun. Maybe I'll be writing about it for The Economist. I don't know.
The National Review.
We're breaking barriers here, folks. It would have been fun. It would have been fun to have a little bit of company, but I mean, I was so lucky to run into a few people. What was his name? Zachary Roberts. He got like literally like nearly thrown out of trying to get into AFPAC and got a short video of the process. I thought that was great. You know, it was a team effort, I think, really, in the big picture of things. Especially because, like, I sure as hell didn't get into AFPAC, you know, and no other journalist did, but apparently a comedian in Orlando can, so God bless him.
Well, Stephen, I want to thank you for, you know, coming on and reliving this nightmare.
This fever dream.
With us. Before we cut you loose, is there anything else you saw there that or that you think is an important takeaway for our audience?
I mean, like, I feel like we're in a bad place when like Marco Rubio was there, and he's like someone who like used to speak out about racism, and then like he didn't, his staff didn't get back to my response for requests. I guess, like, you know, the broad takeaway is like, it's hard to tell whether there are people who are like quietly disapproving or like quietly nodding their heads. And it's just like now's not really a time to, I think, you know, spend much energy trying to differentiate the two, given how overt all of this is. Yeah. So, you know, I guess I would say, you know, I'd suggest maybe don't have a ton of patience for people who seem to be doing a lot of defense for white nationalists, which I don't think anyone listening to this program is ever going to fucking do that anyway. Good for you guys and gals and non-binary folks. But also, like, I guess it's like pretty bad. I think it's as bad as I've ever seen it. So it's also like really fucking funny.
Yeah.
So like, don't let that fool you, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Sure,
you know,
sure,
like
yeah.
it's like, ha 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 ha, I'm in danger sort of situation. And I guess maybe that allows you to have some motivation in contemplating it, I guess, because that's certainly the only way that I was really able to write about it. And also simultaneously convey what I really saw was to, like, you know, try to at least make it entertaining while you read it, because it's a spicy meatball.
And I mean, I gotta say, it was really entertaining, not just to again see your tweet thread, you know, but the pieces you put out are great, and we'll definitely link them in the show notes here. And where else can people find you? I believe you have a Patreon.
I do have a Patreon. You know, if you find me on Twitter at Steve Vanzetti, I have a link tree that links to things that you can find more of my work at. It's like best place to read all my journalism is probably, if you want to see a consolidated list, go to Muckrack. It's a great website. Of course, Protean Magazine. I'm the publisher of that, and we're always putting out every week some great stuff: poetry, critical essays, news analysis, fiction, always with some good art. And I'd say that's pretty much it. I mean, follow me on Twitter. I have an Instagram as well. Don't use it as much, but I post a lot of shitty memes there. So if you're into that, so that's pretty much it. Thank you all for having me. Dwight, you fucking asshole. You should have been here. I'm gonna see you, and you know that. So give you a
Again, Trump's Entertainment Tonight segment. You know, biggest loser of CPAC, Dwight Rhinoceros. Didn't even show his face for the after party. Pathetic.
He was probably changing his diaper. I'm sorry. I love you, Dwight. We miss you.
Again, thank you so much, Stephen, for coming on.
Wonderful. Appreciate it. Thank you guys. Appreciate you.
Stay cool, folks.
Tell the dummies don't flip-flop. Trump's coming back. Check your TikTok. Biden was a pit stop. Dead votes running out. I've been up for 7 days trying to make America great. He ain't even give you a stimmy, so what you gotta say? They just want to kill the people. Democrats full of evil. They just want to kill the people. Playing victims, but they even don't put our names. Won't say they names. Trump coming back. Trump coming back. Roger that. 3Ks like Biden. Woo! Rolls Royce on Sodom. Woo! Hash it bad that I can hear you talking in my sleep. Be a lemon tea, but yeah, I'm rocking on the sleep. I just checked CNN, they calling Trump the GOAT. Biggest embarrassments when Biden met the Pope. You know they call me Blow. The same thing in Hunter's note. Joe sold us to China, you know that cracker gotta go. You know I've been chosen. Trump's nephew, boy, I've been focused. AR-15 got me leaning like a kickstand. Dropping bodies after bodies like a hitman. I've been trapped in this country for so long, trying to prove Americans wrong. All my proud Americans, keep your faith. Trump's coming back home, no debate.